This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Thursday, August 28, 2025, and I've got Alex Maxim here of Android Headlines. How's it going, Alex?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm pretty great. I'm so happy you finally found some time. I know you've been super busy. I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while, and it's just like the bad time of year. I saw you at Unpacked, and I can't believe that was 6 weeks ago now, and there's another Unpack coming. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But it's been Pixel Week. Last week, I covered Pixel. I had Jojo the Techie from Phone Arena on, and you know, she obviously had the phones, but we couldn't talk too much or show anything, right? So today, for those of you on Patreon watching the video version, you're getting a treat because we have two phones. Well, four if you count the 3 Pixels, right? We've got the Pixel 10 series. I've got all 3 of them here. I'll show them to you. And then we have the Magic V5, the super thin folding phone from Honor. You have it. I do not.
Yep.
So you're gonna have to do be the demo model for that one, and I'll let you tell us all about it at some point. Let's start with the Pixel 10s. What is your I haven't read your review yet, which, by the way, folks, look in the show notes right now and click link on Alex's review for the 10 Pro XL. What is your take on the Pixel 10s in general, overarching?
They're really good phones, but they're kind of boring this year because we didn't. On the surface, we don't see a whole lot of change here except for the base model because the new camera's there.
Yes.
Which a lot of people are going to think is a downgrade. I haven't tested enough to see if it actually is.
I have opinions on that.
Because, you got the custom built ISP now. So all kinds of good stuff with the camera. I mean, it's basically the Pixel 9a camera with the Pixel 9 Pro telephoto now on the base model.
Exactly. That's the best way to describe it.
Yep.
And you can add to that Pixel 9 front-facing camera. It's the medley of all the 9s, pretty much.
Yep. And the Pro models are just great, especially having Pixel Snap on all of them without having to have a case. That was the big thing keeping me from using a Pixel 9 as like my daily driver. I usually use an iPhone and have all these MagSafe accessories. Yep. Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So, my impression, honestly, kind of follows yours. I think that on the surface, if you're just like a normal person out there, I think this is a good and a bad thing because like us techies were like, spec-wise, as you said. But it's all in the software and the AI, right? And it's all in the experience. And we've always known this about Google. And I, like you, not like you because you just switched from iPhone, but I'm a Pixel, I'm a Pixel person. I've been Nexus since Nexus 1. I did all of them with all their flaws and issues. And then I did all the Pixels. I mean, I skipped a few here and there. Generally, I'd properly update every 2 years. I use the review units, honestly, because generally I can keep them a year or two.
Yeah.
But so I haven't really bought one in a while, but I've skipped some. I've used them all, a little bit at some point. Generally 2 or 3 months each. But in terms of my main phone, I only switch every 2 years. I'm about to go from, this year I'm making an exception, 9 Pro XL to 10 Pro XL.
Yeah.
But I went from 8 Pro to, I was going to go directly to 10. I was going to skip 9. And then there's a whole story there that people have already heard. It's the Fold story. I tried the Fold for a while. And I love the Fold phones, but I couldn't really make it my daily because I need the best camera possible for my daily. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm getting in the weeds here. What I'm trying to say is that for me, what really stands out here is not the hardware, but I think what they connected with on these phones with people, the average person, is that iPhone story. Right? Yep. I didn't like their presentation at all. I wasn't there. I wasn't invited. I understand why I wasn't invited now. I get it. And I love Jimmy Fallon. I think in general, he's kind of a nerdy dude and for a mainstream guy. And I think, he was a relatively decent choice for this. Android does not have an iPhone story. It does not have, even Samsung is not able to kind of conjure that siloed experience thing that Google, I think, started delivering a couple of years back and is really nailing with the 10. And, it's not for me, it's not for you, it's not maybe for you listening right now. But you got to give it credit that it might work because familiarity is what makes people come back. That's why people buy an iPhone. Like there's a lock-in, sure. There is walled garden, sure, right? But I think that's also the phones look the same almost every year. So they're like, oh, hey, this is great. I just get better hardware maybe, and more importantly, I get all the new features that come with the new software, right? And I think this is what they did here. Now, that being said, Tensor G5 is a pretty big improvement, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing the battery tests right now with the phones, and I'll show you them in a second. But it's like there's two, I've got all three here, the 10, the 10 Pro, the 10 Pro XL. The 10 finished its battery run on PC Mark 3, and it's 16 hours, which puts it in the competitive segment of current flagships. And this is the small phone, the 10. So the other two are still running, which means that I started them roughly at the same time. So somehow the 10 Pro might be beating the 10. I don't know if that's true because I didn't start them exactly at the same time. But definitely the 10 Pro XL is beating the 10 with the 5200 milliamp hour battery.
Yeah, in our battery test, the Pro beat the base model. And I think that comes down to the vapor chamber because the battery is smaller.
Oh, you're
on
right.
The Pro.
Yes.
But the base model doesn't have that vapor chamber.
Correct. So it's time for show and tell. This is the awesome Lyman Netta, whatever color they sent me for the 10. And this is the one that's finished already. So I've got this awesome color scheme to go with it. Purple and green. As you can see, it's your standard Android Pixel experience here. I love that they continue doing the this kind of satin edges on the aluminum, and the camera pod matches that kind of limeish green color. And of course, they have the new camera system, but the back is shiny on the base Pixel. Like, I don't know if you can see that. You can see the shininess there. And then the camera system is where it's at, right? You can see it here. There is a telephoto now. And as Alex mentioned, this is the telephoto straight out of the 9 Pro Fold or 10 Pro Fold. It's also the main camera, 48, and the downgrade on the ultrawide to 13 from the 9A. And the front-facing camera is a 10.5 from the 9 and the other previous Pixels. I think they have that on the 8 as well. But the point I'm making is this is a good combination of parts binning because like the 9A is solid in cameras,
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's true you're getting a downgrade in hardware, but you haven't played with this as much as I have. Zooming, of course, is a whole different story when we talk about that. Yeah. But I think other than that, and even then, this zooms better than the 9. Like side by side, because you have that extra tele, even though it's only 10.8 megapixels, it adds more information. And with this ISP now, that's much improved. The Tensor G5 chip, I think this is really interesting. I don't know how much you guys talked about this at Android Headlines, the various stories, but it's the first really that's kind of like almost pure ARM, like non-Exynos IP. And it's TSMC, which is a big difference. That's why we're seeing better thermals, we're seeing better efficiency, we're seeing better battery life. Slightly, it's not massive. It's like 5-10% overall. Yeah. But it feels better, immediately. And then, of course, the image processing, I think they're doing some really great stuff. And we'll talk about ProRes Zoom in a second when we talk about the pros. But this phone right now, if you're looking for a Pixel and you want something a little bit, slightly, a little bump up from the 9A, it's a little more money, of course, but it's going to be on sale anytime soon. So this, I think, for the holidays, if you're looking for the kind of the ultimate sweet spot of US available, like supported and working on all the networks and everything, and googliest experience possible, I think this is going to be your winner. Like, I don't think you should even consider the 10 Pro unless you're like, you're the kind of person who buy an iPhone 16 Pro or 17 Pro. You want the Pro, but you want the smaller Pro, right? That's kind of where I'm at with this phone. And then there's something I want to point out because, it's going to be the third podcast I'm going to rant about this on. But as you can see here on the top edge, there is no SIM tray. And on the Canadian model and the rest of world model, and I'm bringing up Canadian for a very specific reason, but there's actually a SIM tray on, it's one of these two sides, where on the other side, they have the side of the antenna band. And so, the lack of SIM tray, it really hurts me in my special place, like really deep. I really feel kind of slighted by this. And I know I'm probably one of the only ones. I actually wrote about this in a like Instagram thing as kind of like, hey, check out my review. I love this phone or these phones because my review has all three phones in it. By the way, our review is on hothardware.com. The link's in the show notes, so check it out. But I said, except for the SIM tray thing in the US, and somebody, one of my friends actually, said, not a techie person, but he's like a musician, so he does use tech quite a bit for his music. And he's like, what's the big deal with the SIM tray? Like, why is everybody upset? Aren't eSIMs like a better idea? Like, no more hardware? From an kind of, if you don't know what the history of GSM is and how SIMs work, like, it does make sense. Yeah. Like, from a pure efficiency and cost perspective, eSIM makes perfect sense. The problem is that eSIM adds so much friction, right? Like, it's, there's standards in place, so you transfer SIMs and between phones. And now these standards with Android 16 and with iOS 26 actually work between Apple ecosystem and Google Android ecosystem, iOS and Android. All that is true, but it's the carriers. Like, the moment you cannot decouple the SIM card, the service, from the phone, the terminal, which is what GSM was founded on, you're breaking the foundation of the technology. And I know it seems antiquated to have this tiny little card, but for those of us who, like me, live in two countries, and that's why I brought up Canada, because I also have a residence up there. I'm in San Francisco today, as you can see from my background, which is, by the way, not real. I took this photo, though, with Google Glass from Google's office, like 2012, whenever Glass came out. Anyway, the point I'm making is that this is, in my opinion, anti-consumer. It locks you in to your carrier. Even if you buy an unlocked phone now, it's harder for you to move that SIM card to another device, right? eSIM to another device.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, depending on your carrier, you have to call them. Sometimes there's an app to install. It also means that if your phone is physically broken, the screen doesn't work, if your phone is physically damaged and you cannot connect to Wi-Fi, which is needed for an eSIM transfer, even in the best case, even if the carrier does not have anything to do with it, the eSIM transfer still needs Wi-Fi. What do? Right? In the old days, all you need was a SIM removal tool, a paperclip, a safety pin, that's all you needed. And you're back in business. Your new phone works, your old phone's broken, whatever. And if you backed up your phone to the cloud, you can still restore, but you can't restore. I don't know if the backups include eSIMs. I doubt it. So, that's something we should explore and figure out. But look, it adds friction. And the only reason they're doing this, and this is what pisses me off the most, the only reason they're doing this, and this is Apple who started this, and Apple actually, when they did it originally, I kind of don't understand why, because the original iPhone 14, which they did it on, that space was literally empty in the phone. Now, with the 15, 16, the iPhones, and this Pixel, they're repurposing that space for the millimeter wave electronics and antenna and circuits and whatever. I would presume we have to look at the iFixit teardown, but for the iPhones, definitely they're doing that. And then I can understand why. Like, from an engineering point of view, we remove that SIM tray, we get extra space. Millimeter wave is only a US thing, we put it in. Good. I get that from an engineering point of view. But from a consumer, from a user perspective, from an experience perspective, it's breaking the standard. And more importantly, we're only doing this, and we are the carriers. The carriers are only doing this because Verizon. Because T-Mobile and AT&T don't have millimeter wave in any kind of significant way. So why do the phone manufacturers bend over backwards? And, this is not good just for Verizon. And then help the carriers, all three of them, lock in the average customer by making it harder to transfer to new phones. And you're going to say, again, we talked about experience. We talked about how, it's all about like this iPhone-ness of the Pixels now, right? So it does make sense in that sense. But at the same time, like, also Android phones are for nerds, right? Like, I feel like they were trying to get away from that, but Pixels are I see so many of them here in San Francisco because there's so many mobile app developers, because that's the phone you use if you're a developer. And if you're a developer, you want a SIM tray because you want to be able to test on different SIMs. Like, I just don't understand why they don't give us the option. Like, the Canadian model has the exact same bands as the US model. Exactly the same for the iPhones. It has SIM tray, it has no millimeter wave. So why don't they make two SKUs so that developers can say, hey, we'll buy this one with SIM, one without. We can test everything. We can test millimeter wave. You know what I'm saying? But you're going to say, but that's not who they're aiming for. Even though you see a lot of developers rocking Pixels, they're aiming for the iPhone crowd of Android. And in that sense, while they don't know SIMs, eSIMs, whatever, they don't care. They don't want to deal with any of that. Hence, we need the space for millimeter wave because we have to bend over backwards for one carrier in one country, Verizon, for their stupid millimeter wave. Don't get me wrong, millimeter wave is a phenomenal technology, but it's just not widespread enough to justify this kind of sacrifice, I feel. And I know it's inevitable. I know that now that Google's done it, Samsung's going to do it, guaranteed. If it's not the S26, it's going to be the next gen. And, thankfully, hopefully, we're starting to see with this tight integration in Android and iOS OS level eSIM transfer working, that it's going to be pretty seamless because I'm going to hang on to my physical SIM as long as I can. In fact, big news, I have a Pixel 10 Pro XL coming from Google Canada PR to my Canadian address. That will be my main phone. As soon as I receive it, I'll transfer everything over. And I am rocking the SIM card physically, baby. Anyway, sorry, Alex, for the rant. I want to hear your thoughts on all of this.
Well, as somebody that's been using the iPhone since the 12 now, eSIM, I've just adopted to it. But I will say it really depends on the carrier as far as how easy it is to transfer eSIM.
Right.
I was on Verizon for a while. I want to switch my eSIM from my iPhone to a Pixel. I have to go to the store.
Jeez.
Because it fails when you try to do it through the app. It always fails. And you can't verify yourself over the phone or through chat. So you have to go to the store.
But why do you have to verify yourself? Your SIM is physically in your phone. You can authenticate with the fingerprint sensor or the Face ID. The phones are side by side on the same Wi-Fi network. That's how the technology was designed. Was that not implemented early on? Is that what the issue was?
I don't know. I just gave up.
Because you start on the 12. So just for everybody who's clear, the 12 had a physical SIM tray.
Yeah.
But eSIM started appearing in phones before the SIM tray got removed on the iPhone. And it's still, many of your phones, even some Chinese phones, I mean Chinese manufactured, not Chinese China market, but they have eSIMs in them. It kind of hit and miss on which phones that are made by Chinese manufacturers have it, but it's there. And the reality is it's nice to have. Like when I was in Europe recently for Mobile Congress, I had the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, and with my Mobile Congress Pass came an eSIM. I'm like, hey, that's really nice. Free eSIM for the week, right? I'm not going to throw that away. I might as well just use it. So what phone do I have right now that I could use service on? Because I travel so much, right? You know this, Alex. I don't know how much you know this, but because I live in 2 countries, first of all, I swap SIMs. That's another reason, right? Like all the time. My main phone has a different SIM in Canada. You could say I could have 2 eSIMs in there, but it's not the way I like to work. Sometimes I want to pop out my T-Mobile SIM, which is my main SIM, and put it in another phone to test something. Sometimes I want to take my Canadian Telus SIM and pop into something else. So that's why physical SIMs for me. But then when I'm abroad too, like I have unlimited roaming on T-Mo, so I use that as part of my plan. That's the easy solution. You're going to say, then I don't need an SIM. I could have an eSIM because I'm totally roaming on my T-Mobile. The problem is that I can't roam on T-Mobile as much as I would in Canada, because I split my time, and they have this rule. It's like a 50% rule. You have to roam less than 50%, but sometimes I'm there more and sometimes I'm there less. So what I do is I have Wi-Fi calling and all that, and I'm generally in my apartment, so I don't try not to roam on T-Mo when I'm in Canada. But when I'm abroad, I will roam all I want on T-Mo, because that, if I don't use that part of that 50% in Canada, but by using my Telus SIM there, I can use my T-Mo for global roaming, but I also have 5 SIMs that I use for global roaming. And I have some SIMs activated in different places. My mom is in France and lives in France. I have a prepaid SIM in France that I top off when I'm there. It's physical. It's easy, right? So this eSIM comes to me for free, and I'm like, what phone do I put it in? Oh, yeah, let's put it in the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. And guess what? That was really nice. It worked like a charm. Actually, I shouldn't say that. It took a couple of tries. I had to do it through their app. This was like one of those international roaming, like one of those, not the big 3 companies that everybody sees advertised when you take, when you like go to a hotel or something. But it was just a smaller local one for Barcelona. But it worked after 2 or 3 tries. But it's my point, after 2 or 3 tries, instead of just popping the SIM tray, putting the SIM in. And, they physically gave me a transit pass. So they could have physically given me a nano SIM, right, for this service that they did as part of the MWC package. So I'm still not sold on an eSIM world. I think ideally every phone should have a double SIM setup where you have an eSIM and a physical SIM, or 2 physical SIM slots and 2 eSIM slots, and you can swap in the range any way you want. You can always only have 2 active. They can either be 2 eSIMs, 2 physical SIMs, a combination of physical and E, and then of course you can store, what is it? On most phones, you can store 8 eSIMs, I think.
Yeah, I think it's 6 or 8.
Do you know how that actually works? Because here's the thing that happened with these phones. By the way, this is the Pro XL right now, and they sent me this one. And by the way, this is the other Pro. There you go. Whoa, it's not going to work. This is the big one. Whoa, I've disappeared. There's a big one and this is a small one. There's a small one in front and a big one. So it's kind of hard to tell because I can't really put them side by side. Let me see. Can I put them side by side? There you go. They're both same color, which is kind of sad. I was hoping to get maybe the jade or that moonstone, but these are the porcelain. With this phone, same thing. No SIM tray up the top here, but it's shiny. So that's shiny rails and the camera pods, as you can see. Whoa, no, there. You can see it a little better now. Can I show you the lenses? The lenses are harder to see on this one. There we go. This one has, the same camera setup as the 9 Pro series from last year. It's interesting, the visor is not exactly in the same spot as last year, so you can't use cases from the previous model. Even though the thicknesses are the same, the dimensions are the same, the visor is a little lower or higher, I can't remember which. I tried one of my cases, boop, wah, wah, wah. Anyway, all I was trying to say was that this Pixel is very much, as you can see, the same as the last one. But the ports at the bottom, well, whatever ports things. It's kind of cool that they did the mesh symmetric for the microphone and the speaker.
Yep.
And then the buttons on the side here are pretty much the same layout. And if I unlock it for you guys, I need to do the brightness. I turned off, I set the brightness to a certain mode for the battery test. And so here's what it looks like. It's the same. I set up the same background. I kind of love this purple green thing. So anyway, eSIM versus physical SIM, it's inevitable, but I want both. And I want both as long as possible. And if we have to sacrifice, like OnePlus 13 doesn't have millimeter wave, has a SIM tray. I hope it stays like that for OnePlus phones as long as OnePlus phones come to the US still, which right now is, who knows what's going to happen.
I'm pretty sure it will.
I hope so.
Because the Chinese specific phones, they don't do eSIM.
That's true. A lot of China market
the X8
phones,
Ultra,
but the global models do. And I think
some of them.
Some of them, you're right. It really
like the
is
Xiaomi 14 Ultra that I have.
It's really hit and miss because I've noticed even if you get the same Realme phone, like the Russian version versus the, what I'm saying, like the Middle Eastern version, right?
Yep.
Like they might not have it. Like so that's why I'm saying right now. I'm not saying just that I want physical. I'm saying I want this dual setup where you can you can store up to 8 eSIMs. You can, have a physical SIM or 2 physical SIMs. You have choices. Everybody's happy because choice is what GSM has always been about. The service being decoupled from the terminal. Big deal.
Yep. I think the Pixel first added eSIM on like the 4 or 3. It was a very long time ago.
Yeah, no, but look, again, this is great. I think eSIM should exist on phones. I don't think it's for me, but every now and then, clearly, with that experience MWC, it works for me. It's just I want to have that option, and I think that Apple and now Google and probably soon Samsung only doing this for the US market, only doing this because of Verizon millimeter wave to save the space for the requirement that Verizon has for millimeter wave, which by the way isn't a requirement because the OnePlus 13 works just fine on Verizon and does not have millimeter wave support.
I think it's a requirement to be sold by Verizon, not to work on Verizon, because OnePlus isn't at Verizon anymore.
Again, I love you, George, but seriously, you guys are messing up. In the same way as CDMA 2000 back in the day did not have SIMs and didn't understand this concept of the separation of church and state, whatever you want to call it, of the service and the terminal. In the same way as that wasn't happening back then, you guys just don't want to evolve, do you? Like we gave you GSM, you finally adopted it with LTE, and now you're breaking it for everyone in the US just because of your stupid millimeter wave that nobody's using. Yep. I mean, I shouldn't say that. you probably are benefiting from millimeter wave. If you're a Verizon customer on a Pixel 10 without a SIM tray in a big stadium and you're trying to like Instagram your life away. But I don't care. I don't care. That's not worth the sacrifice for everyone else. So Canada, get your phone in Canada if you're a nerd and you want a SIM tray. So Alex, cameras. Let's talk about that crazy ProRes zoom.
Yep. It's
Thoughts on
better.
that?
It's better than Samsung's, but it's still not great.
You don't like it?
It works for some stuff, but others it just it's such a small difference between like the original picture and the AI enhanced
That's
version.
not been my experience. Like it depends what you're shooting. I think if you're shooting stuff with a lot of detail, and even and it works at night too. So I think if you're shooting stuff in low light or with a lot of detail, it really makes a difference, especially if it's not text, because it'll really mess up text. And that's, I've had a conversation with an AI expert about that. And it turns out that a lot of that is because the models are not designed to actually, once they've created something that resembles text, to then interpret what that text should be. Like there needs to be a second layer of AI that takes, once it's cleared up the first pass of clearing up the photo, it should be a second pass where it looks at the original and tries to decipher just what it says in text. Then goes back to the cleaned up photo and fixes the text. They're not doing that yet. It will come. It's really hard because you have to recognize, is it actually text, right?
Yeah.
As humans are really good at that. Am I looking at a fence or a building detail? Is the building an old building that has text on it? Now, do I clean up the text or is it a decoration part of the building? See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a tough one. I'm really impressed with this because here's the thing. I have the Oppo Find X8 Ultra, which does the exact same thing up to 120x. And I've been very impressed with it. And I've been very impressed with generally this algorithm. I feel it makes a huge difference. If you're zooming past, 29x, which is really when it kicks in at 30x, I think that if you don't often, like if you're just using your phone, like then get a Pixel 10, get the nice, beautiful green one because 20x is just fine on this phone. It's usable.
Yeah.
10x is good, so here's the thing, I don't know, like I think it's significantly better than the S25. I mean, the S25, because they could have this algorithm, then they'd be on par. But I think they don't, and you really notice it. For me, even the OnePlus 13 takes a better photo because it has the same algorithm that the Oppo has, which is similar to what Google has. Even like a 30x picture which is 10 times more than the native 3x, is just as good to me as a 30x picture on the Pixel on the OnePlus 13. So this is, I think even though you're right, it's not comparable to a real camera in terms of performance. I think it's a step up. Like I think we've kind of cranked the dial again from last year to this year with photography using these AI algorithms. It is uncanny and a little unsettling that it's recreating the photo, like using diffusion. By the way, it's the diffusion model. It's a 1 gigabyte diffusion model because apparently when we downloaded it, that's how big it was.
Yeah.
So, but it's on device and it basically, instead of starting with noise and creating an image from a prompt, it starts with this crappy-ish, optically and digitally enhanced traditional digital zoom photo and goes, okay, let's see what could this be? And then it rebuilds it from there. So you're actually using generative AI to create what the AI thinks the image is. And that's where I'm conflicted. But I think that in practical everyday use for Instagram, for social media, for, if you're not taking pictures of your kid that are going to be, for the history books, right? Like that, just got a Hasselblad camera, okay? Like can shoot in medium format or something. I don't know, I'm joking, but get at least a DSLR if you want to have those childhood memories. Or, honestly, if you're not zooming in beyond like portrait mode 2x, I wouldn't use portrait mode, by the way, because most modern smartphones have large enough sensors now that if you shoot your kid at 2x, in decent light, you'll get an incredibly good photo with total natural bokeh and those are souvenir worthy. But you're not shooting a picture of your kid at 100x. You're trying to get that faraway building or that, oh, look at that cool, I saw a cool plane I've never seen before, far away on the runway or something. That's where it nails it. And I think for that, and by the way, you get with Google, you get both photos, so you can keep the one you prefer. with Oppo, you have to physically turn it off. It pops up a thing on the viewfinder telling you, hey, I'm about to do the AI thing. You can turn it off by tapping here, but you don't get both photos at the end. So you have to select as you shoot. I like the fact that Pixel does 2 photos each time you touch a shutter, and you can decide. Of course, you're storing more data on your Google account, so they love you for that. But it's over time it's going to take up a lot more space because but you don't zoom more than 30x very often, so hopefully it balances out. I still think it's a great idea they're storing both photos. It's made it easy for us for our comparisons for the reviews. Right?
Yeah. I think it works the best on like buildings, cars, but when it comes
anything
to like
that's
signs
not
with text, it's not as great.
It's actually okay on even like forests and stuff, like anything that's like not moving subject, not human, not animal, it's going to be okay. Actually, I saw somebody took a photo, I think it was a Petapixel YouTube channel. They had a Pixel 10 Pro XL review, and they're camera buffs, and they took a photo of the butt of a duck, when the ducks dive into the water, and at 100x, and it really worked because again, it's a pattern it's familiar with, right? Yeah. Like the feathers, and it looked really nice. So I would say 75, 80% of the time it works well. And then every now and then you're like, meh. But at the same time, if you look at the equivalent original, it's like, I should probably not zoom in that much, right? And that's that point. If you don't have the option, it's nicer to have something that maybe has weird text on it. Like it's up to you to decide. But I think it's a step forward, and I think that I'm torn by it because a generative AI, is like photography is cheating anyway from the get-go, right? So, but now we're at a point of cheating where I'm like, like it's a little much, guys. But at the same time, the results are like, oh wow, right? If you you said cars, buildings, landscapes, the kind of stuff you probably want to zoom in for.
Yep.
What about the rest of the phone? What are your thoughts? I'm very excited about Qi 2 with magnets, aka whatever you want to call it, Pixel Snap, or MagSafe. The entire MagSafe ecosystem is now available to you as an iPhone user. For you, that's probably a deal breaker, correct?
Yeah, having Pixel Snap is going to be great now, especially for IFA next week. I'll be able to just snap a battery
you're going to
pack
be
on
there.
The Mac.
You're lucky. I couldn't find a sponsor for lodging and travel this year, so I'm not going.
It was tough.
There are some shows that I would find a way to go out of my own pocket for, like MWC for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I have a friend who lives there in Barcelona, so I crashed on her couch, give her a bit of money for food and stuff. Works out great. I use, I travel so much. I have so many air miles from all my car stuff. Another reason I travel a lot is all my car coverage for Tech Radar and for Tom's Guide. So I end up getting flown around, and that gives me air miles, and then I can use those air miles as an emergency thing if I wanted to go to Barcelona, for example. So when I go to MWC, folks, most of the last few years, sponsorships have been dry there too. And I have just made it happen out of my own pocket, which is why, again, video version of this podcast on Patreon. If you want to support me, go to my Patreon. $5 a month buys you a podcast a week, and you get it in advance, 1 day in advance. $5 a month, 1 podcast a week, a day in advance. And you get to watch us do cool stuff on video, like show off these Pixel phones. Yay! All the Pixel phones. I love this industrial design. I think that this is, a lot of people are also upset, right? Not upset, but some people are like, it's so much the same. Well, we've pointed out the lack of symmetry. We've pointed out the visor is not exactly in the same place, which is kind of a bummer because really the case thing, come on, like, at least, well, I guess Apple's done the same. There's always a slight difference from year to year, right?
Yeah.
Even though the 15 and the 16s, the camera bump has evolved. It looks similar from a distance, but it's definitely evolved on the iPhones in terms of size and depth.
If you compare it to the iPhone 11, it's ginormous.
I know, but my point is, it's because it has evolved so slowly. We don't really connect it. We see a phone out there, we don't know. Unless we see that it's not slab-sided, then we can tell it's an earlier phone. But anywhere from the 12 on, it's really hard to tell, especially in a case. But there are differences, and the same thing is here, so I can excuse that. But I think overall this design from last year is amazing, and I think that I understand why they didn't change the design. I'm totally on board with this design. But it also feeds to this familiarity thing that I was talking about at the beginning, where I think the average is to attract an iPhone-like audience in the Android world. You don't want to shake them up too much every year, right? That's why in this case, the hardware is not that different, but the software and the AI features are really cool. Like this ProRes zoom is just a software feature. Now, it does require Tensor G5, I believe, so we're not going to see it trickle down. But technically, they could implement it slower, it'd be slower and probably less effective on a Pixel 9, right? So, the biggest change that we talked about is the cameras on the Pixel 10. And then MagSafe support across the board, including on the folding phone. I know Pixel Snap, whatever, Qi 2 with magnets, call it what you want. Tensor, that, the ProRes zoom, and of course the lack of SIM trays, which is a negative, is the four big corners of this Pixel 10 story this year. And there's other things like brighter displays across the board, better speakers across the board. The speakers are amazing this year, really. Better charging speeds across the board, especially on the XL, which has 45-watt charging at last, hooray, and 25-watt Qi 2 support, which is the latest Qi 2 version. Again, you need the proper accessories for that, so don't expect to just charge faster on all your existing MagSafe stuff unless you have I don't even know if that'll work, because the new MagSafe puck for iPhone, I think it needs to see an iPhone to give it the full wattage, right?
I'd assume so.
There's some kind of handshake going on. Even though it's Qi 2 25-watt compliant, if it is compliant to the standard, it should work. This is something we should test. I don't have the latest puck. I have the original puck, so I can't test that.
Yeah, I only have the original.
If you're playing games on your Pixel, you're a weirdo, first of all, because why would you do that when you can buy a Snapdragon 8 Elite phone? But assuming you're playing games on your Pixel 10, you can use that cooler, the cooler from OnePlus. The charging cooling thing. That's what I love about MagSafe or Qi 2 or whatever. So that's cool. What else? Charging speeds, battery capacities are larger. But honestly, the combination of TSMC 3 nanometer and, of course, the in-house IP for the Tensor G5, and then in addition to that, the bigger batteries. And this is where you see the magic of the battery life being a little better. It's not incredibly better, but it's
standby has really improved this year.
Oh yeah,
I did
like
some tests 8-hour standby tests on both of the Pros. Actually, the smaller Pro lost less than the larger Pro. But it was like 2 and 3%, so it's not that big of a deal. On the 9, I think it was like 7 or 8%.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I think I'm kind of excited about this. I think this is as a Pixel fangirl, I cannot complain. Like, yes, superficially, it doesn't look like much has changed, but if you had those 4 things I talked about, one being a negative with the SIM trays, I'm getting my only 3 of those. I don't have to worry about the SIM tray with this incoming review unit from Google Canada. But for those of you, listen, if it really matters to you, just go to Canada, buy one, come back. If it sounds like crazy, but all you need is a passport, and flights to Canada are pretty damn cheap. Doesn't matter where in the US you are. Just don't fly Canadian Airlines; they're more expensive. So fly US airline if you can. Yeah. So, and then swap your phone when you're there. Like, it doesn't matter, just you're all good to go. So, and I think support will work. I don't, on Apple, definitely it does. Apple supports you internationally when you buy a phone. Doesn't matter where you are. By the way, pro tip, I found this out. Narav, who's been on the podcast many times, has a US iPhone and he's in the UK. That's because the way it worked out. He wanted it first. We happened, because he's like me, he's by country, he travels all the time. So he bought the iPhone when he bought it, and it happened to be in the US. And when his iPhone got stolen or lost or broken, I can't remember, at MWC a couple of years ago, he had a replacement because he's got Apple Care Plus. And guess what? He was in Europe and they sent him a US model. So they will actually replace it with... So I don't know if this is something, again, we need to investigate. Does Google honor the warranties? And I would assume so. Like, this would be crazy. But will Google replace your broken Pixel if you have like the Google All, whatever, the subscription thing for the, for the insurance, whatever it's called? I wonder if they're going to replace it with a US model or a Canadian model. That'd be interesting to find out. Anyway, look, Pixel 10, Thumbs up. I gave it editor's choice. Like, you can't go wrong with this. Like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm very much a big fan of the Galaxy S series, especially the 25 Ultra. But if I'm going to buy a phone from Samsung right now, it's going to be the Z Fold 7, okay?
Yeah.
Like 100%. Like, to me, if you're looking at just the US market, you're really narrowing it down, and you want an Android phone right now, it's OnePlus 13 or Pixel 10. And the third player would be the Galaxy S25 Ultra. And for me, the reason for that is mostly that I'm not a big fan of One UI. Even though it's changed and evolved, still not. I really much prefer Oxygen OS or Color OS. And even more than that, I much prefer the Pixel stuff with all its features. Yeah. So for me, that's the hierarchy. But folding phones is a different story. We don't have a OnePlus Open 2, aka the Find N5, which I have in my pocket at all times. Here it is. It's in this factory case. So it's a half case. You can see it there. This thing is bonkers. It's thin. It's awesome. I love it. I highly recommend it. Oh, I was listening to Groove Armada. But look, we can't have that. So I'm using that and a Pixel. Those are my two daily phones. Like, I didn't want to compromise the camera, so that's why I have the Pixel. That's my daily. And then when I really need to get productive, I'm on a flight and economy, which happens a lot inside the US. Most of my business class flights are for abroad, and then I have room to use a laptop. But as a bigger person, I don't have room to use a laptop. So I write on my Find N5. I literally write on the big screen with my thumbs. It's great. I don't pump up an entire review on that, but like if I have to write a quick little, addendum to something, or, fire off a bunch of emails for the 2-hour flight between San Francisco and Vancouver, perfect. Yeah. I wish I could combine both. That's the story from last year where I tried to go the 9 Pro Fold, but I couldn't because the 9 Pro Fold, it wasn't the thickness. That was great at the time. It was very competitive with what I'd been using before, which was Open on one side, Pixel 8 Pro on the other side. So this year it's going to be Find N5 on one side, Pixel 10 Pro XL on the other. And the reason I'm not going to the Z Fold 7 is, again, I'd rather have Color OS than One UI. And then if in a pinch, the battery's dead on my Pixel or something, the cameras on the Oppo are better than the cameras on
That's the main
Samsung,
reason why
just a little bit.
That's the main reason why I prefer the N5 over the Fold 7, because the camera and the battery and charging.
Battery, oh my God, the battery life and the charging speeds. And let's not forget pen support, which I don't care about at all, but it's there. It's there. A lot of people like, well, Samsung said they couldn't put the S Pen because it's too thin. Ha ha ha, you fools. Because let's talk about the next phone. Speaking of pen support, ultra thin, Honor V5. Walk us through it. Tell us what you think, what you like, what you don't like.
I think it's the gold and black version. Honestly, I think the hardware, like
can you show it like in the center of the screen, because I'm going to crop us and show the thickness if you can, like show put it right on the edge like that. That's great. And then look at that. So it's 4.1 millimeters, right? Show us the USB port.
This one's 4.2.
Whatever.
The white one is 4.1.
This is about the same thickness as. There you go. Yeah. Actually, can you move it a little bit so that the USB is centered? Yeah, perfect. Like this is about the same thickness as the Z Fold 7 right there.
Yep.
And it's also the same thickness as the Find N5. Actually, here I'll do it. I'll do it to get you all happy, because I know you're dying. I'm taking off the cover on my. So this is the Oppo Find N5. Oh, it's not going to focus there. But as you can see, it's about the same thickness as these other phones, right? So pretty awesome. And what do you think of it? Like, is the software still super wonky? Because the Honor has always had super wonky software.
Yeah, it is. I still prefer Oxygen OS or Color OS.
But is it
foldables.
Getting better? Like, are they actually listening to us?
They're more focused on AI, like everybody.
Jesus. Yeah, but like, if the base software is not like good, fun, pleasant to use, who cares about all the AI features you throw on top? That's the thing about Pixel that's so great, is that the foundation is great. So we haven't talked about any of the AI features. Read my review. I literally bullet point them all because there's so many. I only tried like a handful of them because, look, I'm not a software reviewer. And, it's kind of getting harder to review phones if I'm just, interested in, for me, it's cameras and hardware really. So I think the one that surfaces automatically like things inside of apps, I can't remember which one that's called.
Magic Q.
Magic Q. And
that's my favorite AI feature right now.
It's really great. It did work eventually. It took a while to like scrape all the stuff for me, but I'm very Google invested in my ecosystem. So of course it worked for me. But the other one is the kind of the daily summary, like similar to what Samsung has. What's it called again?
Daily Hub.
That's it.
It's inside Google Discover.
Yeah. And that honestly felt a lot like the Samsung experience to me. Like I didn't get much out of it. I
didn't either.
Like right now, the Samsung one, even in second gen now, with Android 16, it's not surfacing that much for me. I'm sorry. And it's actually very interesting that it's not surfacing that much for me on my Pixel, because my Pixel is a Gmail account. My main account has everything on it. Like it should find a whole bunch of good stuff in there. But so does Honor do anything like that?
Honestly, I haven't used the Magic V5 that much.
You just got it, right? Yeah.
Oh, I got it 3 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, but you've been busy.
There's so many other phones to review. Yeah.
And what's your take on the cameras? Like the little bit you've used them, are they any good? Because that's the thing I find the Chinese folding phones really nail every time. That and battery life and charging speeds.
Yeah, the cameras are better than at least the Fold 7, maybe not quite the N5. And I haven't used the Vivo foldables. But it's
the ultra wide has got to be
consistent.
better than the N5. Oh, it's the consistency, because the ultra wide is bigger than the N5. That's a big downgrade from the OnePlus Open, which is the N3, right?
I think it's 50 megapixel ultra wide and then a 64 megapixel periscope 3x telephoto. I
think honestly, anything's going to be better than what Samsung has on the Z Fold 7. I don't know if you read my review, but I feel, and I've said this on the podcast before, I feel that the Z Fold 7 telephoto is a sticker cam. It might as well not exist. Like if you compare it with the exact same setup of the ultra wide and main on the S25 Edge, and you take a 10x photo with both, one is telephoto, one is not telephoto, the difference is almost negligible. And then you compare that to the Oppo Find N5, which I did in my Z Fold 7 review, and it's night and day. And then you compare that to the Pixel, or like to an Oppo or OnePlus that has this AI zoom, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh my God. Like, so I'm hoping we can get an Oppo phone next, like the N6, I guess. Find N6 if they do one, or the Pixel 11 Pro Fold if they improve the hardware, right, on the cameras. Yeah. Once we get triple 50 megapixel or triple 48 or whatever, the same setup we have on the Pro Pixels today, the bar phone Pro Pixels, if we can get that on a folding phone, and the Chinese are already doing that, but if we can then add the AI sauce, I think then I'll be able to have a single phone in my pocket, folks. I can't wait. Can't wait.
Yeah, because if you go triple 50 megapixels, that camera bump's going to be huge. I mean, the Magic V5, I mean, this is already about as thick as the phone. The camera.
Well, that's the other thing. The camera pods are getting out of control on these phones, but it doesn't really bother me because, like,
it only bothers me on the Fold 7.
Well, because it's wobbly. I was going to say the wobbliness bothers me, but like on these other phones, like the Oppo and the Honor, I had the Honor Magic V3 for a little while. Nick Gray lent me his for a bit. Thanks, Nick. And honestly, it wasn't a big deal because that camera bump is pretty uniform. But you're right, it's a challenge. But if you look at, I mean, there's improvements, right? I reviewed the Find X7 Ultra. I took it to Antarctica. I went on an Antarctica cruise and talk about taking the best possible camera phone at the time. Because at the time, the Xiaomi 14 Ultra at the time wasn't out. So I took literally the best camera phone I could with me. And also had the S24 Ultra and the 15 Pro Max iPhone at the time on this cruise. So I did a comparison. It was great. The point I'm making is that I compared that phone to the Oppo Find X8 Ultra. By the way, my Find X8 Ultra review is still coming on geekspin.co. Elena, my editor, just hasn't had time to put it up yet. But the thickness between those two, camera bump size, the overall thickness of the phone and the camera bump size have shrunk dramatically without a loss of hardware performance. And on top of that, they have this AI zoom. So I think that we're progressing in the right direction. I think it's just kind of like the kind of in-betweenness that we're at right now, where we can't make the camera bump small enough, but it's coming. I also don't want them to reduce the sensor sizes too much. Like, it's easy to say, oh, let's save money and see depth by reducing the sensor size, and then we'll add more AI to make the photos better in software. And no, you were going in the right direction. Just keep going with the big sensors and the variable apertures and the craziness like we're hearing. We should jump into this right now. The Find X9 Pro that's coming is rumored, the specs have leaked completely, and it's rumored to have a 200 megapixel telephoto 5x periscope, of course, instead of the 250 megapixel 3x and 6x telephotos it had before. So it's kind of an interesting thing because they're trying to save money, obviously, in a way, by making it's probably like 50% cheaper or something, or 25%, because it's like bigger sensor, one of them that you can zoom in more digitally on by sensor cropping, but you're removing another camera, so you're saving money. Maybe, I don't know. But it's probably all about making the camera bump thinner and the general feel of the phone a little more manageable. And I'm supporting that. I'm actually looking forward to this phone. Dimensity 9500.
Yeah.
The batteries are going to be around 7,000 milliamp hour ish.
I think it's 7,550.
Jesus Christ. So this is the thing with the V5, right? Like the battery is insanely big for the size of the phone, super fast charging. I really... that's another thing we need from Google and Samsung and Apple. Like, I feel like we live in a backwards place where we don't get the tech that the rest of, like, we're not getting the Chinese EVs. They're fantastic. I've driven them. They're awesome. Like Canada is looking at maybe getting them because, all the tariffs with the US and the issues, and our auto industry up there is suffering because of it. So they're like, well, maybe we'll let the Chinese build plants so that our workers can have jobs, and then we can have their cars, which are awesome. And Canadians like smaller cars anyway. And so, EVs are very popular, especially on the West Coast where I'm in Vancouver. So, but the point is, why is it that we're not getting the silicon carbon in the fast charging? I mean, it's okay to have 45 watt and 5,200 milliamp hour on this awesome Pixel 10 Pro XL. I'm happy with that. But is it good enough when you see what the Find X9 Pro might be bringing to the table? That's the question we ask.
Silicon carbon, I don't know. I don't think it's going to come to any US phone other than OnePlus, obviously, because they're already here. But as far as like Samsung, Google, Apple, I don't think it's coming anytime soon. Samsung, we know why. Google, they probably don't want to make the investment.
Well, I talked to one of the Google product people. I forgot his name now. One of the main guys that we see sometimes publicly on stage. And he got offended when I brought up, like, his reaction was like, I mean, maybe I was a little flippant with him, but I said, hey, you guys really need to step it up and get some silicon carbon batteries in these Pixels, right? And he looked at me, he was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, have you looked at Chinese phones recently? What do I mean? What do you mean? What do I mean? Like, come on. And he goes, well, no, those are not safe. And those are like, this is not, they have longevity issues, and they have, issues with expanding more. And I'm like, no, none of that is all true, but it can be controlled. It's in the way you charge and manufacture the phone and everything. Like, the Chinese have solved this problem. Like, where the hell are you here with your information? Like, yes, it's true. All you were saying was true. But we've resolved the problem.
I think Honor is on like their third or fourth gen.
They started
silicon carbon battery. It.
So, and Oppo and Realme and OnePlus are very close behind the former BBK group. Vivo as well. I believe
they all are silicon carbon.
Oh yeah,
even
everything
Xiaomi,
now.
Vivo.
Look, I got a whole bunch of mid-range phones here from Realme and from Xiaomi this year. All of them have 7,000 milliamp hour batteries. It's standard. These are $350 phones. They charge at 80 watt. With 7,000 milliamp hour. And speaking of which, this is perfect for our segue for the next topic. Realme has shown two prototypes actually. One of a 15,000 milliamp hour concept phone. This is following 3 months ago, the exact same looking, by the way, concept that they did with a 10,000 milliamp hour battery. But now it's 15,000 milliamp hour. And this is not a brick of an Uli phone, Ucatel or whatever, like 1 inch thick rugged phone that has a big battery in it. This is a standard 8mm-ish phone. And then they have a prototype they took what it looks like a Realme GT7, which is their non-highest flagship, and they put a 10,000 milliamp hour battery in there. And they're actually cooling the battery by using like an electrical cooler, the Peltier type cooling. and it's not particularly thick either. So I think we're headed there, and that's why I'm not too surprised they're saying what 7,500 on the Find X9 Pro for the rumors. Like that's insane. Like honestly, anything above 6,500 right now, I'm totally fine. Like even 61, 6,200, I'm perfectly okay. 7,500, are you kidding me? That's like 3 days of battery life. I don't need that. It's crazy.
Realme told us for the GT8 Pro with the Snapdragon 8 Elite 2 that's coming in a couple of months.
Yeah.
That it's going to be at least 7,500.
Holy crap.
I think it's going to be about 8,000.
Wow.
Because the GT7, I think, is like 7,000 or close to it.
Yeah, no. The GT7 is I think 65 or 7. Yeah, I have it. And the GT5 Pro is 6,100 or 6,500. Yeah, the time when it came out last fall, it was the first Snapdragon 8 Elite phone I got, by the way.
Yeah,
the
me too.
Pro.
And first Realme phone I got.
Oh, cool. Yeah, they're great phone. I've had them for years now. But like that thing was basically like just like, you know, it did not have wireless charging compared to the OnePlus 13, which is very similar to, they're both very similar phones. But here's another example. Again, I'll put all these links from GSM Arena, where I get most of my news weekly for the show, in the show notes. But the Redmi Note 15 Pro and Pro Plus are official alongside the base Redmi 15. And this is a Redmi Note, to be clear. So Redmi Note 15 Pro and Pro Plus. And these phones, again, the Redmi Note has always been a great, like you get, 80% of a flagship experience for 50% of the price, right? Snapdragon 7S Gen 4, it's the first phone with that new chip that came out last week. And then the Dimensity 7400 for the regular Pro. And of course, you get nice cameras, but you get a 7,000 milliamp hour battery. Once again, it's like, what? This is standard stuff on these $300-$400 phones, mid-range phones in Asia now. And I'm not talking about, these are not Chinese market. These are global phones that are sold in like Malaysia, Hong Kong and like other places like the Middle East. Like, I don't know. It's crazy to me that we can't have that like yet. And then, we talked briefly about the V5 because you haven't had a chance to play with it much, but at least you showed it to us a little, which is great. I can't wait to play with one at some point. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You're going to review it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Android Headlines will have a review soon, folks. Check it out. There'll be battery tests. There'll be, camera tests. And, you're going to tell us all about how wonky the AI and the software is. I can't wait. But there is also the flip phone they launched, right? And that one is, we've talked about the rumors on that one forever now. It's called the Magic V Flip 2. And some reviews are out there. And it's the biggest battery in any flip phone yet. 5,500 milliamp hour, again, silicon carbon. It's got a 200 megapixel main camera in the back, which is the first time we've seen on a folding phone that's not a book style, because the Z Fold 7 has 200, but this is the first flip style phone like that. And a 50 megapixel ultra wide. And it's a very similar setup to what we've seen on Razer, but the cameras are vertical instead of horizontal, and they're in the left bottom corner instead of the right bottom corner. And that means that it's actually very clever because the UI can adapt the apps to run at like 16:9 on the side of the camera. So if you don't want to run the apps in the square form factors, you can run them kind of like the Oppo Find N3 Flip was, but it didn't extend the display over into the cameras like this one does. And then they have like a Jimmy Choo edition or whatever.
Yeah, that's the one that I have.
Yeah, so I mean, look, it's cool. I wish I could, I wish Honor would send me review notes. I would love to test these for you guys. But alas, they don't. But check out the specs. These are officially out now, those two folding phones from Honor. Everything's out there. And it's exactly what you think. Like, I love that we're seeing the Chinese phones do more flip folding phones now too. Like Xiaomi has their Gen 2 product. I have the original Gen 1 folding phone of theirs. They've been really kind of weird. I haven't heard much from them lately. I've been pinging them and, I know I'm pinging the right people because other people are getting emails from them, but I haven't gotten a review unit from them since the Xiaomi 15 flagship, the base one.
Yeah, we've had trouble with them too.
Yeah, stay tuned, folks. I'm working on it. I'd love to get that Redmi Note 15 Pro Plus, for example. That'd be a pretty interesting phone because I've reviewed it multiple times in the past on Geekspin, and because I think it's such a value, especially if you're abroad.
Oh yeah.
Like essentially, as I said, it's 80% of a flagship experience for 50% of the price. Like for $350, you're getting 80% of what you get on a $750, $900, whatever dollar flagship. It's amazing. I mean, I'm not a big fan of HyperOS. Like I still think it's not my favorite. It's kind of
It's so unoptimized.
It's kind of out there with me with One UI. It's like there are things like the fact that you cannot flip back to the notification tray and the quick settings being united. You know, like in most Android phones now, it's an option. It was, you know, in the past, it was an option on Xiaomi phones, but now it's not. So I don't know what the deal is with that.
Yeah.
A couple of quick PSAs before we wrap up. And you've probably heard about this already, folks. Keep an ear out for a bunch of new phones coming. Obviously, the iPhone 17 event has been announced for September 9th. So you'll want to tune in on September 9th to find out everything you need to find out about the iPhone 17s. I'm most excited about the Air. Are you? Did you like the S25 Edge? I loved it.
I never got the S25 Edge.
I was surprised. I went into it going, and then I used it. I was like, yeah, I get it. I totally understand it now. Like, it's not for me, but I totally understand it.
Everybody I've talked to that's had it, they've just like fallen in love with it and it's turned into their daily driver.
And guess what? I think the 17 will be like that with the Air, 100%. I think it's going to be a bestseller for Apple. And yeah, it's going to be wonky to have a single camera. And there's also going to be some compromises, but I think Apple's going to do it right. And I'm really looking forward to it. And of course, there's this copper-colored Pro. Ooh, hotness. I might have to replace my 16 Pro with that one. But we'll see. And then, of course, Samsung hasn't unpacked. It's not going to be a major thing. I think we're going to see maybe a fan edition phone, maybe some tablets. That's what the rumors have been saying. So stay tuned for that. That's on September 4th. So September 4th for Samsung, September 9th for Apple. On September 4th as well, and this is a China-only thing right now, but it's very exciting because if you follow China like I do for their cool, crazy tech, the Mate XT, the next generation of the trifold phone, will be coming out on September 4th as well. It's going to be called the Mate XT S, with the S being a small s. And we expect just basically the same essential hardware with a few improvements in terms of camera, processor, whatever the thing might be. But yeah, I think, look, they're still the only ones out there. So Gen 2 for them. Wow. Yeah,
because I think everybody else is still doing prototypes because Techno has put out a couple.
Yeah, but prototypes don't matter.
You can't even touch them. That's how prototypey they are.
I do remember back in the day when TCL was making cool folding prototypes.
Yep.
Anyway, we should wrap up. Alex, you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, where you write, if you have a YouTube channel or something you do, or whatever, social media handles?
Yeah, you can find me over at androidheadlines.com or just search my name pretty much anywhere. Just Alex Maxim on Twitter, Threads, or I guess X, etc.
Cool. Yeah, of course. So you do Insta as well, Blue Sky, any of those?
Not as much.
But you're there. We'll find you. Okay. Because I want to add you when I publicize the podcast. Yeah. Cool. So, follow Alex's work. Read his review of the 10 Pro XL. It's up right now. Again, link is in the show notes. Read my review of all 3 Pixel 10s. And you know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankrl, TNKGRL, pretty much on every platform. So that means you'll find me on Twitter, although I'm not very active there, but mostly I'm on Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram. I've got a TikTok now. It's not just TNKGRL. There's a number at the end, so you'll figure it out. You'll see my little icon in the thing. And then I'm just starting TikTok, so just, baby steps. It's reluctant. I'm doing it because I think it's going to help the podcast, not because I want to. But if you want to follow me there, please think about it. And then, of course, the podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on all the major platforms, so please subscribe if it's your first time here because you're following Alex here. Please add me to your list, to your queue. If your app lets you rate or review the show, please consider doing that. That would really help. There's a YouTube channel, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. Obviously, there's got some hands-ons there, some unboxing, some extracts of the podcast. Like sometimes I rant about something or I review something and I just cut it down and put it on the YouTube channel, generally a little after, so that my Patreons get the exclusive of the entire show a day in advance, once a week for $5 a month, which is a great segue into my Patreon, patreon.com/TNKGRL. Please support me there if you can. I'd appreciate it. And I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. You know I review a lot of phones, so I'm constantly juggling multiple devices. While that's fun, it also means I'm spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. Thankfully, there's Mint Mobile, and that's who I'm teaming up with for today's podcast. If you want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. You've probably seen the Mint Mobile ads featuring Ryan Reynolds, but let me quickly tell you how fantastic their service is, especially for tech-savvy early adopters like us. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current devices and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM card free of charge. The whole process only takes 15 minutes, and if you get stuck, Mint has a great customer service team to get you through it. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning-fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link, mintmobile.com/mobiletech, to get premium wireless starting at $15 a month. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And Alex, thanks so much for joining me. I've been wanting to have you on for a while. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much.
All right, folks, we will have Alex on the show again in the future. And next week, we'll have another podcast. So obviously, stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.